Commodore fans, are you ready? It's time for another episode of the Vandy 24/7 podcast on the 440 Sports Network. Keep it locked right here for the best Vanderbilt coverage. Whether it's Clark Lee on the gridiron, Mark Byington and Shea Ralph on the hardwood, or Tim Corbin on the diamond, the Vandy 24/7 crew has you covered. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Also, like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's free and easy to do. Follow the crew on Twitter, Apple Podcast, and Spotify for podcast episodes. Lastly, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email Chris Lee at chrislee70@gmail.com. And now, pull up a chair. It's time for another episode of the Vandy 24/7 podcast.
Welcome into another episode of the Vandy 24/7 podcast alongside Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick, and we are here to recap Vanderbilt's 97-67 loss to Oklahoma in Norman. The worst half, I'll say. I mean, the first half was fine, right? I think a lot of the discussion tonight, Joey, is going to be about that second half. Obviously, the worst half they've played, the worst stretch. I mean, I think they got outscored 23-0. I think it was to start that second half, and I was, it's Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma is, right up there with the South Carolina types, LSU. I mean, they're good. They're better than those teams, but this also isn't, Kentucky or Tennessee or Auburn. So a lot of questions, obviously, from fans, whether it's Jalen Carey, who didn't play in the first half, ended up playing in the second. No press conference for Mark Byington, but Robbie is going to put an article out there with his comments, so you guys will see that. Joey's got some comments on Twitter. But Joey, your thoughts on what you witnessed? I'm still trying to figure out what happened myself.
Yeah, I think Mark Byington said it best. He said on his postgame hit that it was embarrassing. He said everything fell apart. It was poor all around, and that he hopes that's something that we never see again. And I think the big thing coming out of this is not only what happened today, but when you look at the stretch ahead and you look at it through a lens of what happened today, pretty difficult to have a ton of optimism that this team's going to look more like the team that beat Kentucky than the team that lost today. And I think today's big scoring droughts and the huge Oklahoma runs were indicative of something that this team is kind of hidden throughout the big wins, and that's they don't really have an out pitch and they don't really have a bench that can be relied upon to score. I think they do have solid depth. They've got a lot of guys that can give you things, but also you look at the bench today, 12 total points from the bench out of 67. They shot 4 of 16 combined. They don't have a true dump it down, get you a bucket type big that's consistent. I think Carey can become that, but you're still really waiting on that as well. He missed a couple easy ones tonight, and Byington did say in the radio hit that it was a coach's decision, which is what we were told during the game. So, Billy, I just look at the scoring drought and I say, man, that's a flaw that can stay with them the rest of the year. And it's already started to show up a little bit before today, but now that you see it lose them a game, that's something that's really concerning to me.
Yeah, and I do want to mention our basketball sponsor, the Wash House. Are you dreading laundry days? It's the only time to do the things that you truly enjoy. Let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you. They got 2 great locations in Nashville. Just drop off your dirty laundry, and their professional attendants can give you back the one thing you can never have enough of, your time. Within 24 hours, you can pick up your nicely folded, fresh, and clean laundry, ready to be put away. Log on to washhouseclean.com or stop in today and get your time back. Joey, the first half was, like I said, it was fine, and Vanderbilt, it felt like the middle part of that first half, Vanderbilt had stretched out to double digits. I thought it was really important for Oklahoma's sake that they cut it to, I think it was 4 there, right before the end of the first half. It was 40-36, but that stretch right before the half gave me a little concern that Oklahoma had created momentum. They brought Forsyth in late in that first half, and he provided a spark. I didn't see a ton of juice from Vandy, even in that first half. I mean, they were making shots, but you get into the second half, and I'm with you. This is a real problem for this team opening second halves. Now, it's not every game, but how many times, Joey, have we seen this team come out of the halftime locker room just look disheveled? and as if they haven't made adjustments and they're not focused like Coach Byington said. That bit them big time today. And now they've been able to battle back from those. I thought they might battle back from this. They had cut it to, what was it, 8 there in the second half, maybe 7.
Yeah, they made 4 out of their 5 field goals after the 23-0 run. It looked like they were going to come back a little bit.
Yeah. So, but even then, Oklahoma stretched it back out. They shot, I think the TV guys said they shot 72% from the field in the second half. And I do want to credit them. They hit some guarded shots, like in the lane. They hit some big threes. They ended up 11 of 20 from 3 today. Vanderbilt's only 7 of 26, 39% from the field for Vandy. Oklahoma ended up 63% from the field. And looking at the box score, you look at Edwards and McLaughlin, 21 and 22. But who else gave you anything? I mean, Hogard had 8, but you didn't get anything from anyone else. Nickel only had 2. And again, he was 0 for 4 from 3. When Nickel's hitting threes, this team is winning games. And when he's not, it tells you, number one, they may not be executing at their peak form, but also, you're playing on the road. It's not, you're in a different gym, in a different environment. Magnon fouled out. Lack of character there. I mean, I don't know why he's talking to Oklahoma there. Ended up getting a technical, and he was that booted him from the game. MJ Collins only had 2. Tanner 2 for 7 from the field, had some good looks, only 6. Huffman struggled a little bit. Carey only 2 points. It's just a weird showing from this team. Obviously, their worst performance, at least worst half. I mean, you look at the game as a whole, worst deficit loss, right, by 30. But Joey, how much does this concern you? I am concerned. I still think this team is good, right? This team still has a path to the tournament. But after this loss, you start to look at the path, and all of a sudden you start to quiver a little bit when you think about the games coming up. I mean, at Florida Tuesday, after Florida gets throttled by Tennessee, that's not going to be fun.
Yeah, in college basketball, I think the term every loss is created equal is overused a little bit. And I think today's an example of why. Vanderbilt loses by 30 today to a team that is ranked below it in the net. That's going to kill them. The two things in the
that's
net,
going to hurt in the metrics, yeah.
The two things that you got to do in the net is not lose by 20 and cover the spread, and you'll be all right. Vanderbilt didn't cover the spread tonight, wasn't even close, and lost by 30. I mean, it was complete domination today, right? 61-27 in the second half. Like you said, Oklahoma shot 72% from the field in the second half, 58% from 3 in the second half. Vanderbilt was out rebounded by, I think, 15 over the course of the day. It turned it over 15 times. Just can't win with basically anything that Vanderbilt had. And for good measure, Oklahoma made 9 of its last 9 field goals. All 9 of them went in. And, man, that is just.
And they weren't all wide open looks either. Like they were hitting some tough guarded shots.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a completely demoralizing day for this team. And I think you're worried not only about the stretch that they had, which included about 10 minutes of scoring drought throughout the game. You're just throwing away 10 minutes of the game there. You can't do that. And you see all the flaws of this team amplified in one day. And then even some things that aren't flaws looked like flaws today. That's really concerning. And I don't only think that this is a bad optics day, it's also a bad numbers day for this team. And to me, it's the worst loss they've had since the loss in Tuscaloosa a few years ago when everything came out about the hibachi and they lost by 57. I mean, I don't even know if it's an argument. This is maybe not the worst loss. I think Presbyterian was worse, things along those lines. But in terms of SEC losses, the most embarrassing they've had since then.
Yeah, and look, I think the other side of this, you flip it over to the positive side. Tennessee early, a couple weeks ago loses to Florida by 30, right? Mississippi State lost to Missouri by 20 today at home. You see these blowouts with these road teams where you see a 15-0 run and you just can't respond from it. That's hard in this league, and that happens to teams. But the other side of it too is the things they've struggled with keep popping up, and teams are seeing that on film. The scoring droughts, like if Hogard is not able to be a floor general and facilitate and get the team into the offense, they struggle, right? It felt like they had a really good second half plan for Edwards. Edwards had, let's see, in the first half, Joe, I mean, he was rolling. He wasn't missing. He had 14 in the first half, and he had 7 in the second, but, I mean, he was 2 for 8 from the field in the second half. Obviously, that's not going to cut it. And their plan, like I said, I think their plan defensively on Edwards was really good, but they got to find more scores. You got to find more points. I think you can only lean on your defense to create for you so much, especially in this league with the amount of scores. I mean, we talked about it. Oklahoma is a bottom half of the league team, but Fears and Moore, I mean, those are two potential, future NBA players who can put the ball in the basket, and you bring Forsythe in there and late in the first half and provides a spark. Like, I didn't see any of that type of fight really from Vanderbilt today. I didn't see the same level of juice and fight, and on a week off, Joey, right? I don't know what their practice schedule looked like this week, but I know Byington said after the game, hope we never see that again. I think this team will respond. I'm not saying they're going to beat Florida, but you do return home Saturday to play Texas, and then you get Auburn at home. I think you got to, if you're Byington, and he's been able to find adjustments, maybe not at halftime, right? Coming out of the half, they've been bad in a lot of these games, so that's an issue. But I think between games, game in, game out, he's made adjustments. He's changed some things. They're going to have to find more ways to score. And even McLaughlin was shut down for a lot of that second half. Carey was a non-factor. That was huge. I mean, when you're trying to rely on Roberts, down there to create, he had a big turnover. They got to find more ways. They're going to have to make another adjustment here, Joey. The first adjustment there was after Mississippi State. That Mississippi State loss changed some things offensively. You saw Edwards get healthy, of course, but I don't know what they're going to have to change. But I think, if anything, you got to get that attitude back. I didn't see a ton of chip on the shoulder type confidence today. And, maybe they saw they're ranked, coming on the road. Maybe there was some overconfidence, but this did not look anything like the team we saw the last couple of Saturdays at Memorial, where you saw some magic and shots were going in and defense was creating points on the other end. They did not play to their identity at all today. And again, it's not the end of the world. I do wonder how much this hurts them in the net, in KenPom, in the bracketology, right? I mean, 10 seed potentially now, I would guess. But yeah, they got to find some new things here, Joey, because they cannot play like this again the rest of the season. I mean, that was bad.
Yeah, and it was worse too because they were up 13. I think that's really a part of this that demoralizes you. It's not like the Tennessee-Florida game where you come out and you get your butt kicked by the number 5 team in the country. It's you come in and you show that you can beat a team like this, which they obviously can, because I don't think Oklahoma is all that great anyway. They're hitting shots. They're playing fast. The offense is flowing. McLaughlin's getting whatever he wants. Edwards getting whatever he wants. And then it all just falls apart. The attitude's gone. All the flaws are showing up. That's what's really demoralizing here, I think, for Vanderbilt, is that you're looking at it as a game that they're going to win. I thought they matched up really well with Oklahoma coming into the game. I thought this is one of their better matchups in league play. And they come out and you say, wow, they could win this game by 10 or 15 points. And then that happened. And they get ran off the floor. They get their butts kicked. Unlike what they've done throughout the Mark Byington era, they have not had a loss anywhere near that. I think their worst loss was Alabama. And they came back and made that a game at one point and made it look a lot better. And you were expecting them to lose that game by somewhat of a decent margin. You were expecting them, despite the 3-point underdog label, I think we both thought they were going to win that game. And to have it end like that and to look like that on the way out, I think that's really demoralizing for this team, like we've mentioned. And I also wonder how much that carries into things, because this feels like the type of loss where it can either get you right for the rest of the year and you go into games saying we've got to take every game seriously, or it could get you off the tracks and you have a hard time getting back on. So it was a huge week to see how this team responds to this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the week. But you go to Gainesville, and if that gets ugly, who knows what happens here. I choose to believe that this team is probably above something like that. With this thing completely falling off the rails, you'd think they'd have better leadership than that, but you just never know until you get down big on the road, and you kind of got to see what you're made of. Vanderbilt is finally going to see what it's made of internally.
I feel like a lot of these SEC teams at certain points in the season, they have those desperation games, right? I don't know that Vanderbilt's had one yet. Maybe they do here in the next few weeks, a desperation type game where they know they have. I mean, this was a must win today for Oklahoma, right? They were 2-5, right, in the SEC. They needed to stay on the right side of the bubble, and they did. They got it, and everybody stepped up for them that they needed. Well, on the other hand, Vanderbilt didn't have to have it. They're the better team. Like, I think somebody in the comments said, from a talent perspective, we should beat them. Clay says, I'm with you. I mean, I think as a whole, Vanderbilt is a better team than Oklahoma. But Clay also says in the chat, wondering if having Carey in the first half would have prevented the Oklahoma run. Maybe, but I don't think this was all about Carey.
And Carey was on the floor when they made the run, right?
Right. Yeah. So I don't, I do think late in the first half, like you had Roberts in there instead of Carey. I think that hurt a little bit, but I don't think you could throw all that on Carey.
And same with the foul trouble too. Hogarth had 2, McLaughlin had 2. They were constantly getting pulled and going back in. Oklahoma made a 7-0 run at the end of the half that I thought was big, while both of them were on and off the floor too. So have to mention that as well. I mean, there's 3 huge runs in this game that completely defined it.
And this didn't look like, I keep going back, this didn't look like they're this team. It just, really, if you look first half, right, they a lot of this is the second half, right? But in the second half, this was not the Vanderbilt team that we know and that they know they're capable of playing. Like Edwards, I thought passed up some open threes in the first half, and I'm not just chalking this up to missed threes, but they did miss a good chunk of important threes that, if they make 3, 4, 5 more, maybe it's different. But it was more than just that. They were not good defensively in the second half. There was not the same level of focus, as Coach Byington said. And in the SEC too, Joey, like I don't think you can overreact to games, no matter who's coming up on the schedule or, and I know that the Vandy's got a gauntlet coming up. So does Oklahoma. So do a lot of other SEC teams. If you take it and if you overreact it to these games, you're going to drive yourself crazy. I don't think this changes a ton from how I feel about this team. Carey, I don't think he was hurt, but again, that was a coach's decision. If you get him back for a whole game, maybe things are different, right? If you get 4 threes from nickel, maybe things are different. If they play cleaner, maybe things are different. But this is a huge moment. Like you said, Joey, this week for them, you got Florida on Tuesday and then Texas coming into Memorial on Saturday, who could very well be a desperate team. I mean, this is the real battle time. Like they're going to be in some wars here. And I'm interested just to close out here, your thoughts with what does this change in your mind in regards to this team? If, or does it drastically shift the pendulum for you and how you look at this team?
Well, I do think you're right. I think this wasn't this team, and that's not what this team generally looks like. So I'll refrain from saying that it's going to change anything bigger picture. I do think that this is the type of loss that maybe requires you to win 1 or 2 more than you'll have to, just because of the bet. Like, they could have lost this game by 10 and you could have just written it off completely. Now I think, man, you maybe got to win 1 more than we thought you generally had to. Maybe you've got to get to 8 now instead of 7, especially because of that non-conference strength of schedule. That's going to hurt them. And they've only won twice on the road. Neither of them were against great teams. So I think, I don't know if it's desperation time or anything along those lines, but I think we're going to find out what this team is made of in the next few days. And I don't know that we haven't not known what they're made of, but when the rubber hits the road, who are you? That's what we're going to find out about this Vanderbilt team. And today, I think, causes them to go back to the drawing board and have a long flight back to Norman. If we didn't know that the SEC was difficult on the road, I think we found that out today.
To close it out, I think this is a good comment from Heath. It was ugly, but if you go back before the Tennessee game and said we were going to win 2 out of the next 4 games, you'd be happy, and you would just assume that one of those was Oklahoma. Yeah. I mean, I think what you've done here, what they've done here, Joey, is you did beat Tennessee, you beat Kentucky. That sort of, I think, negates, like, if you lose to one of those or lose to both and you lose to Oklahoma, oh boy. I mean, we're looking at this team a lot differently. They've done enough for us to continue talking positively about them, but man, they got to fix some things, and they just got to get back to playing their brand of basketball. They got to get back to forcing turnovers. They got to get back to getting more open looks. I thought a lot of their threes were not wide open and they weren't great looks. I thought they forced up some, but in the comments here, Knox Too Tall, Texas, Georgia, and Arkansas are must wins now. I would agree with that. And you still got Ole Miss, you've got Auburn, you've got Kentucky and Tennessee again, of course. But man, those road games are going to be tough. I think you've got to really hold serve now at Memorial as best you can. But Joey, Vandy lost by 30 to Oklahoma, 97-67. Again, stay tuned to the site. We'll have Coach Byington's full comments and reaction, and see what this team's got on Tuesday in Gainesville. And we'll both be covering remotely for that one, but we will be in the gym on Saturday for the Texas game. So that's the next time we'll be in person covering this team. Got a lot of work to do, Joey, and we'll see what happens. But that's Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick. Thanks for watching and listening to another episode of the Vandy 24/7 podcast.